Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bob Mendelsohn, and this is the Bob's Your Uncle podcast. Today we speak about rainbows and stealing and a month of strange celebrations. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining me for this Bob's Your Uncle podcast, Season 3, Episode 10. Of note, the opinions are strictly my own. I hope you enjoy Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor. It's one of my favorites. You can now find us and comment to us wherever you get your podcasts. Tell us what matters to you, what triggers your joy, what bothers you in the world. Let us know. We'll see where the Spirit leads us. Whether you're at home, online, on the road with me in your headset at the gym, or out for your evening constitutional, wherever you get your podcast, that's where we will be. Thanks for being with us these 18 minutes.
Don't know much about history. Don't know much biology. Don't know much about a science book. Don't know much about the French I took. But I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
Historical Marker of the Week. Today is Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, the feast day of Saint Valentine, a priest and physician who was martyred about 270 CE in Rome. And the tradition of exchanging greetings of love on Valentine's Day is based on the legend that Valentine had signed a letter to his jailer's daughter, with whom he'd fallen in love, "From your Valentine." In 1929, members of Al Capone's gang of bootleggers massacred a rival gang run by George Moran in Chicago during the Prohibition era. And on this day in 1989, Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran issued a fatwa and offered a bounty for the assassination of author Salman Rushdie, whose novel, The Satanic Verses, Khomeini denounced as blasphemous. And that's the historical marker of the week. I love artwork. As I speak with you today in the Art Lounge Bondi in the back of my bookshop in Sydney's East, I have a display of 20 of my favorite photographs of all time on the walls. And in the photo books that are also on sale, I have 39 of my favorites. Artwork matters to me, and you're invited, by the way, to come see the exhibit anytime during the month of February. That said, rainbows, I think, are part of the original artwork from heaven, or that's what I think. I've enjoyed taking photos of rainbows on golf courses in Ireland, in the quiet city of Howlong, New South Wales, even in San Francisco. But today I'm going to talk to you about more than that. Thou shalt not steal. That's one of the big 10, the 10 Commandments, and it's a serious one. I don't like thievery. Of course, there are movies where some people who seem like good guys steal the diamond or the automobile or the major artwork of whoever, and we sort of cheer for the almost bad, basically good guys, don't we? But stealing, not a good thing. Especially when someone steals something that belonged to our grandmother, or to our agency, or to our footy team. I lived in New York City for 9 years in the last century. Lots of history there that goes back hundreds of years. But a newish marker is noted only since 1969, when in Greenwich Village in Lower Manhattan, the Stonewall Riots took place. It was there, in the heat of summer, that the gay men who frequented that bar, became exposed as homosexual and fought police in their raiding. Ever since then, June has long been recognized as Lesbian and Gay Pride Month in honor of the Stonewall Riots, which took place there in that time. And during Pride Month, it's not uncommon to see rainbow flags being proudly displayed as a symbol for now what we call LGBTQ rights. That flag became a symbol of pride. And this month, it's a little unusual, this month, February, has supplanted the Pride Month calendar for the whole year. That's because the events, instead of happening in Amsterdam or San Francisco, nope, they're happening here in Sydney. And since June in the Northern Hemisphere takes place in summer, and February is still very much summer here in the South, and since Mardi Gras takes place on Fat Tuesday, that's the 21st of February, well, it all makes sense. And next year, I'm sure they'll go back up to a northern event, and thus June will probably take over in 2024, I suppose, but they're not sending me notes about this. So this notion of the symbol of the rainbow, well, it goes back to 1978, about a decade after those Stonewall Riots, when the artist named Baker, Gilbert Baker was his name, an openly gay man and drag queen, designed the first flag. It had a rainbow all over it, and Baker later revealed he was urged by one of the fellows there in San Francisco, Harvey Milk, who was one of, I think, probably the first openly gay elected official in the U.S. Harvey had encouraged Gilbert to create a symbol of pride for the gay community. And they decided that a flag would make sense because they saw flags as a powerful symbol of pride. And that's who they identified themselves to be. They adopted 8 colors for the stripes. Remember, we had 7 when we were in school: ROYGBIV, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But these guys, Gilbert, created hot pink for sex and red for life and orange for healing and a bunch of other ones. Well, the first flag was flown in San Francisco at the Gay Freedom Day Parade, and they had them made by hand, I suppose, but now they mass-produce them. It wasn't until 1994 that the rainbow flag was set as the symbol for gay pride. That year, Baker made a mile-long version for the anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, the 25th anniversary it was. So the flag is now an international symbol for gay pride and can be seen flying proudly in Australia, certainly here in Sydney, really all year long. I tell you all this story so you can understand an annoyance I had last week. I was walking with my grandsons on Shabbat in a northern Sydney suburb when we walked in a play area, a particular one that they enjoy. At the exit to that play area was painted on the ground a rainbow, bright and shiny, and my older grandson began playing on it. I mean, why not? He's innocent. He has no idea about gender fluidity or dysphoria or Stonewall Riots. He just loves colors and playing. And that was fine, I suppose, until I read this today from that local council news. Quote, "We're getting ready for Sydney World Pride celebrations to kick off on Friday, 17 February. The Progress Pride flag was installed in the plaza last week," end quote. Okay, that's enough for me. That rainbow was a sign originally way back in the day and had nothing to do with pride. In fact, it had everything to do with God's promises never to destroy the world again by flood. And that's especially good news to those in South Australia or Auckland, New Zealand, where this year's floods have ravaged local communities. I'm not talking about the flash floods that swept through Sydney last week and toppled a tree here or there. I'm talking about days-long, even weeks-long rains that destroy paddocks of crops and ruin housing developments. I'm talking about 2 years ago, those rains around New South Wales that killed 3 and ruined more than $1 billion, that's with a B, dollars of property. Whole cities like Lismore having been devastated the year before in the flood of the century, copped it again less than a year later. For those towns and those townspeople, the rainbow is a sign. To understand this, we have to jump ahead of our usual schedule on this Bob's Your Uncle podcast. After the interview with the guest or my own discussion of topics important of the day, we'll often have a Bible reading. But I'm going to jump ahead and read a bit from the #1 bestseller of all time, the Bible, and back in Genesis chapter 9. This is what we read. After a big flood had come on the earth, God said this in Genesis 9, verse 11, I establish my covenant with you. He said that to Noah. And all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood, neither shall there be again a flood to destroy the whole earth. God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I'm making between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all successive generations. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come about when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow will be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and never again shall the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the rainbow is in the cloud, then I will look upon it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that's on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant, which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. That's Genesis 9:11 through 17. Now that's powerful. That's fantastic. And today is Valentine's Day. We already said that. And a lot of people went to the shops and bought flowers, went to another shop and bought candy. They bought cards at the gift store so they could say, honey, be my Valentine, or I love you, or would you forgive me for all the things I've done wrong? I'm holding my hand in my other hand and on my fourth finger of my left hand, and different cultures have it on different hands, and some men don't, and some women don't wear rings all the time. But I'm married to my wife for 46 years, and on my fourth finger is a reminder of some agreement that we made 46 plus years ago. A covenant is what the Bible calls it, an agreement that's more than just a contract. It's a covenant that says you and I have something that goes beyond humanity. It goes beyond, a signed contract that after 3 months or 2 years we can break if we don't like it. No, there's something that's deeper, and marriage is called a covenant. The rainbow is a sign of a covenant between God, the one who made heaven and earth, and who destroyed the whole earth in the flood of Noah. It's an agreement between God and humanity and all flesh, it says. That means all the animals too. So that we can have confidence that when floods or rains or clouds even start coming, that we're not all on the planet going to be destroyed by it. There's both a trauma associated with major floods and rains, and a comfort that he has the whole world in his hands. He's got us, and we're not going to be destroyed. So when I see a rainbow, that sign of the covenant, that agreement that God initiated, that love gift that God gave, being used and now misused by people who say, oh yeah, we're going to memorialize the Stonewall Riots and talk about gay rights. I think, stop. That's not the symbol. That's a sacred symbol. And to misuse it for other purposes, just find that wrong and out of bounds. And I hope that one day we'll be able to say, "Thou shalt not steal," again. What do you think about all this? Write me on bobmendo@aol.com, or comment or even video to me on Instagram or Twitter at Bob'sYourUnclePC. I'd love to know what you think about all this. Don't forget to post a review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're getting your podcasts. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast, and hit like if your app asks for that as well. We can use all the good speak we can get. And your podcast app will notify you of the next episode, which, by the way, will be next Tuesday. Until then, from me, Bob Mendelsohn, when things seem bleak or uncertain, look up to God. He's in his heaven. And Bob's your uncle. Shalom from Sydney.